Land back.
Back.
Land back, everybody. Welcome to the Revolutionary Book Chat, which is your place to go to get that political education, that revolutionary anti-colonial political education, where we come and read a book that is about a revolution, about a revolutionary, about revolutionaries, about different nations, different colonized nations, and so we can learn how to become better revolutionaries. So welcome everybody. Land back, F Joe Biden. Ooh, yes, F Joe Biden. Let's go, Brandon. Land back, Tiger. welcome, welcome, everybody. Make sure you are coming in and sharing. We want to make sure that you like, share, and comment and subscribe. All
Mhm.
right. So make sure you are putting this into your Instagram DMs, into your Facebook groups, into what else can they put it in water comment?
You can put it in your Twitter, in your Tinder, in your uh whatever app you use. I don't know the apps anymore.
I know I was like, I don't know any apps that people use. I know plenty, but where do people share things? They share them on Gab, they share them on
Mhm.
Twitch. But I like that. Share it on your Tinder, right? If you're like, oh, you're trying to figure out that opening line and you don't know what to say to that match that you just got, just like say, hey, watch this show with me, and then you could test them out, see if they down or not. For all you
Exactly.
they're just a really, really, really sad liberal who wants to, vote for Sleepy Joe and Kamala, and you're a revolutionary, and y'all can't be together.
Uh-uh.
Would you
Blasphemy.
would you ever be with someone like that? About the comment?
Heck no. I can't
Mm,
swear on here, but strong words. Absolutely not.
yes, not
Because
even
our
on
that
Tinder.
that means our values are just don't align, and
Hmm.
it just would never work.
Exactly, and if those values align, some other things ain't gonna interlock either. Hmm.
Please.
Man, that everybody. It's nighttime book trap, at least nighttime in the United States, but we are an international organization. We are an organization that's all around the world. So, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our comrades everywhere. So F. Joe Biden said, not me seriously considering your advice so I can have some romance for Valentine's Day. Oh,
You know what's better than just romance though? Revolutionary romance. And sharing the political line with them is that's test number one.
test number one is like, are they down with these four principles?
Mhm.
They got to at least be down. No one said they had to join right away, but at least let them be down. Let
Mhm.
them be down. But Valentine's Day is and colonial holidays, and
That's
we can celebrate revolutionary romance any day. So don't feel like time is up. You got time. You can make it happen. All right. Land back Virgil, land back City Builder B. All right. Make sure again you keep on sharing. Share this video and hashtag shared when you shared it. Hashtag shared when you shared it. All right. So that we can get this political education out. But yeah, what are we reading, Chief Watakame, for the book chat?
Today we are reading Open Veins of Latin America. Um, don't mind my little bookmarks. Yes, we're finishing up chapter 2. Chapter 2. So it'll be good. It was a good section.
Yeah, it was a good section. It's a little bit shorter, so y'all had some a little bit more time to read, and it's ready to get us into chapter 3. But yeah, we finished up chapter 2, and that means we're almost done with part 1. Once we're done with chapter 3, that's done. We're done with part 1. And so yes, Open Veins of Latin America by Eduardo Galeano from Uruguay, poet, writer, academic. I mean, he's academic. He wasn't like in the revolutionary movements in Pachamama, but he understood them and he wrote about them.
Hmm.
So there's stuff that we learn because we get a lot of the history of why even the revolutionary movements happened, and that's an important history.
Hmm.
And so yeah, we've been reading this, and if you need to find it, you can go to blackhammer.org/library. That's where you can find this book and all the other books that we've read for the other revolutionary book chat series, as well as any other revolutionary books that you are interested in finding about your nation. And if there's something that you want to find, and you don't see it in the library, you can email us at bhoagriprop@protonmail.com, and we'll put it in the library. Okay, we'll put it there because we want to make sure that all of our revolutionary ancestors and movements around the world are covered. Mhm.
That's right.
But we're covering Turtle Island and Pachamama now. So
Hmm.
that's what we'll get into. But before we get into the book, what should people do, Chief Atagami?
Donate, donate, donate. It's how we continue to do all of the revolutionary work, right? That is informed by the people that we read about or the movements that we read about, right? And it's being on the ground with the people. And that takes resources, which we've been hearing a lot about in this book, right? The resources that they took. And so we need them back. And you can help us do that so we can continue to change the world and bring about revolution because that's what it's about. So you can do that by cash apping Blackhammer.org.
Yes, Cash App Black Hammer org today. You can see that we got work being done all around the world, and that work takes resources, right? Whether it's giving out our free K95 mask, whether that is getting, like pounds and pounds of food to people, whether it's getting clothes, thermals, thermal socks, first aid kits, all kinds of things that we're getting to the people, and that takes resources. And so, if you want to participate in the revolution and you don't know how just yet, if you're like, I don't want to be a member because I don't know if I can be ready for that, but I want this work to keep on happening, you can donate to Black Hammer Org on Cash App. Super easy. Take that $5, 5 for 5 biggie bag you're about to do at Wendy's and just send it to the revolution, and make some spaghetti at home tonight instead. There's always things we can do to change where our resources go so that we can build something better for the future. That's
Exactly.
how I be, and that's how I do because I want this world to be good for my family, for everyone. So
Mhm.
yes, land back. All right, so make sure, yeah, you put the donations in the captions or in the comments, and keep on sharing so other people can see these donations. Right, Black
Mhm.
Hammer Org on Cash App. But next we have our book trap trivia, so we can get into this book. But we want to make sure that y'all have at least looked at the reading. Goodness. All right. What's our question?
Okay, our question is Emiliano Zapata and the campesinos of Mexico rose up against Porfirio Diaz in what year? A. 1898, B. 1910, C. 1920, D. 1922.
Ooh, I made this one easy. This should be easy, y'all. We know
Super,
some of
super.
y'all are watching the Super Bowl at the same time as the book trap, so want to make sure that y'all are paying attention.
You can multitask.
Yes, you can. We're multitasking all the time here at Black Camera. We'll be doing our reading for the book chap, and at the same time be on our way to go serve the people, serve homeless people in tent cities. Right? That's how we roll Black Camera. We can keep our attention on multiple tasks because that's
That's,
how the revolution got to be.
that's right.
Uh, so City Builder B said B. All right.
1910.
All right. Who else has an answer about when the Mexican Revolution, as in Emiliano Zapata and the campesinos rising up against Porfirio Diaz? And I was funny. I was asking Chief G Watagame. I was asking him, is naming like a kid like Porfirio like something that's like just disastrous, just like you can't name a kid Adolf, right? So like, is that the same as naming a kid Porfirio? Is that true, Watagame?
I mean, I never met one. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a name that we don't really say unless we have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. And we're saying it now because we're trying to learn from the past. We're trying to
Hmm.
make sure that we see our revolutionary ancestors and how they rose up against their enemies.
And part of that is naming the enemies by name,
Mm-hmm.
calling them out by name.
Yes. Just like how the Atlanta chapter went to that church in Atlanta about the meeting on
Hmm.
MARTA and called out Mayor sellout Andre Dickens by name, right?
Hmm.
They called
Hmm.
him out by name, saying you're gonna steal all these resources from the people and pretend like nothing happened and put people, our people in jail when they might take $200 or $2,000, but they could steal 200 million and ain't nothing happened. We gotta
Exactly.
call our enemies by name. You're right about
That's
that
why
one.
we yell F Joe Biden. That's why we say F Lori Lightfoot. That's what we call, F AOC, all of these sellouts, all of these sellouts, right? We're not scared.
Yeah. We're not scared, just like Emilio Zapata wasn't scared to organize the people and name their enemy and then rise up against that enemy.
Hmm.
All right. So let's see what the answer is. It's B.
B, 1910.
1910. If you ain't know that, then you need to brush up on your Mexican history and also just your revolutionary history. That is an important year in general revolutionary history. Don't even
And
matter what nation you're from.
if you've been following the book trap for a minute, this was also last year's January book was the Zapatistas, which is also in our library.
Exactly. Right. So you can learn more about the Zapatistas all in that book. And, we got a little bit of information about them in this chapter
Hmm.
because, this book, again, covers multiple continents.
So much.
So there's a lot of history and a lot of stories to tell. But we do get a little bit of it. So we'll talk about it soon. But yeah, make sure you all drop your read that backs into the comments because we're about to get into the book itself. And so a read that back. What's a read that back again, Chief Atakami?
It's any section of the book that stuck out to you that you want to discuss, that you have questions about, anything like that. You can just put it in the comments with your page number and the quote.
Okay, yeah. And also, we didn't even introduce ourselves.
We didn't.
Well, okay. Well, before we all keep talking and being cool and intelligent and smart revolutionaries, let's introduce ourselves. Go ahead, Chief Atakami.
We really pulled a. You already know who it is. Um, I'm back, y'all. My name is Watakame. I represent the Coca and the Wirarica people of colonized Mexico, as well as the poor and working class. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the chief of staff for the Ministry of People's Affairs, where we're dedicated to solving the problem, like getting our people through the crisis of colonialism, right? Whether that's through Rona care, natural event preparedness, and growing food for some of the small things we do.
Yes, the small things. It's the small things they do. They
I
be
mean,
doing.
okay, I misspoke. Words are hard sometimes. They're really big things, but those are only a few of the things we do. Is what I meant to say.
Mhm. I have to say,
Few.
yeah, they're out here making sure that people around the world are safe from natural disasters and preparing them. It's pretty amazing, y'all. Yes, that's just again, yeah, one of the few things. But
Mhm.
yeah, my name is Chief Oju. I represent the nations of Africa and Boriken. I come from the working class with some pretty blue contradictions, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the chief of agitation and propaganda at Black Hammer, which is responsible for politically educating not just our members, but the people, making sure that people hear about the revolution, understand the revolution, and are creating basically the culture for the revolution. All right. And so, if you want to do that kind of building and really make our people not just understand, but live in revolutionary culture, join Agitprop. All right, that's how you see the colors, you see the themes. This is what how where it comes from.
Mhm.
So yeah, land back. Let's get into our read that backs. We already see one in the comments, but keep on dropping them, y'all. Keep on dropping them. All right, I believe this first one is it's mine. All right, this one's on page 116.
Oh, hold up. I think mine is the paragraph right before that.
Oh yeah, that's true. True. We could. Let's do yours first, and then you right.
Mhm.
All right. So because yours starts with Latin America gave birth.
That's correct.
Hmm.
So on page 116.
Right.
There we go. Thank you so much, producer. Um, Latin America quickly gave birth to bourgeoisie constitutions well varnished with liberalism, but there was no creative bourgeoisie in the European or US style to accompany them. One which would undertake as its historical mission the development of a strong national capitalism. The bourgeoisies of our countries came into being as mere instruments of international capitalism, liberally oiled cogs in the global mechanism that bled the colonies and semi colonies. These shop window bourgeoisies, moneylenders, and merchants who monopolized the political power had no interest in developing local manufacturers, which died in the egg when free trade opened the doors to the avalanche of British merchandise. Nor were their nor were their associates, the landlords, interested in resolving their agrarian question, except to the extent that they could feather their own nests. The latifundio was consolidated on a foundation of plunder.
Mm.
Land back. Yeah, so I chose this because it really calls out those neo-colonialists, right? Because where it's talking about like the petty boo, the petty boo
Mm-hmm.
in our country, right? Like, because we know the boo to be those colonizing people who steal our colonizers, steal our resources and use it for themselves. But I think this does shed light on the petty boo,
Mm-hmm.
who, like it says here, are just liberally oiled cogs in the global mechanism, right? Like they are still at the beck and call of the colonizer, right? But
Yes.
because they get slightly bigger crumbs of our own resources, right? They think that they have power, right? Because they're the merchants, they are the landlords, they are the people who run the shops, and like they ensure, right, that the people stay down,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not the ones calling the shots, but they're the ones like answering it, right? They're answering the call made by the colonizers, and yeah, I like the way that um Galeano really talks about them in like such a it like you can, I don't know, for me you can like hear the disdain. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're nothing but like liberal, like um what did Mao call them? Like the running dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
running dogs. Like they're literally the guard dogs for Europeans, right? Making sure that the colonies stay in order, making sure that the people like don't rise up, which we read about a little bit more in this section. Um, and yeah, like it calls it part of in Latin America, like to this day, that is the biggest thing, right? It's neocolonialism. It's people of who look just like us, but are at the beck and call of the colonizers, which is not something we talk about a lot. Because when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about colonialism, and some people get confused because like, oh yeah, it's people of color, right? It's that are in
Mm-hmm.
power and whatever, 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 and they think that representation is liberation. But I think this section, and it goes on to explain a little bit more of like why that doesn't matter. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter that they look like us because they're not doing anything to benefit us. At the on the contrary, right? They get away with it easier because it does confuse people that they look
Yes.
like us. And that's because our people are good people. And they can't like our people are so good, it's hard to imagine that someone just like them is willing to do stuff just like the white people.
Exactly.
And like
Yeah.
it's hard and
Mhm.
it's heartbreaking, and that's why we're here to call it out. Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, full unity with that. The way that, yeah, the way that Diana describes them as, liberal oil cogs, like, yeah, they're greased. The grease is that the extra crumbs, the extra money they get from doing the jobs and stuff uh that help keep colonialism and capitalism running. And so, that like the example, like, Oprah Winfrey, because a lot of times people, like you said, confuse this petty boo and this boo, right? So this bourgeois is the colonizer, is the people with the resources itself, right? That have control of them,
Mhm.
at least, right? They have control over them. Whereas the petty boo is colonized people who are this kind of step down from them, that are have a lot of the resources or have access to a lot of these resources, um, because because the colonizer said you can have some as long as you're continuing this system of colonialism that I'm keeping in place. So you think like Oprah Winfrey, for instance, like people might think, oh yeah, she's just like the white people. She's a billionaire. She's got so much money. But Oprah doesn't even have control of that money. That money is given to her. Nothing, it doesn't actually come from anything she really owns,
Mhm.
because what she owns is nothing. She just has access to some of the things that the colonizers created,
Yeah,
like the
like
television, right, and the media. Those are things that aren't under her control, that she gets to have access to, right? And if she in Italy, and she was trying to buy a purse, and like the people in the store followed her around, and said like, "Oh, you're stealing it," and like even Oprah couldn't escape it, because she's a billionaire, she still is colonized. And
mhm.
so, like, when you see like these, like, the people who own the latifundios, uh, like their interest shouldn't be uh the interest of like the colonizer, the people who are using the latifundios to take resources to build for things in Europe or in the US. They should see their interest is the same as their people, right? Oprah's self-interest is the interest of other colonized people, of poor working class colonized people. Because if Oprah wants control, the only way Oprah can have control is if the poor working class colonized masses have control. There's no
Mhm.
other way for Oprah to really own anything if the poor don't own anything. And
Mhm.
that's the thing that is like about petty booths is that they until they're taken out of that machine, then colonialism is gonna keep going because it's gonna confuse everyone. It's gonna confuse poor working class colonized people who want to aspire to have things like Oprah. But then
Mhm.
yeah, we're gonna get caught. We're gonna get stuck. We're gonna get stuck again if they keep on being in the machine. And some people say, "Oh, is it the petty blues who are gonna, they have to change. If they like clog up the machine, then they'll be fine." It's like no, it has nothing to do with them. Like they could clog up the machine all they want. The colonizer will just replace them.
Exactly.
People they can replace them with. It's the poor working class colonized people who are going to have to, tear down and beat down the machine, and those cogs either have to pop
Exactly.
out before that happens and help, or just go down with the machine with it.
Mhm.
That's just how it goes. And yeah, with these latifundios, a lot of the owners of the latifundios went down with it in these revolutions that happened throughout Pachamama.
Exactly.
hmm Yes. See, Ren says here at the end of the day, there isn't enough money to buy yourself out of a system that is meant to squeeze the life out of you.
Period.
Period. Yes. And then Virgil says here, wealth and power and so illusory, everything of value resides with the people. Yes. Right. Yes. There's nothing of value that is exists in this petty blue world. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let him back. Yes. And so, yeah, if remember, could keep dropping your read that backs in the comments so we could talk about it. If there's a quote in the book that stuck out with you, make sure you drop it in there. Um, and we want to see it. We want to see it, y'all. We have a read that back from. Ooh, I just want to make sure it's not mine. That's all.
Um,
How we always be overlapping. Oh no, this is it. Okay, we're gonna read Virgil's right here. It's on page 118. Let's see. It says foreign intervention wiped it all out. The oligarchy reared its head and took vengeance. The validity of Artigas' land distribution was legislatively repudiated. From 1820 until the end of the century, the poor patriots who had benefited from the agrarian reform were violently evicted. The only land they kept was enough to be buried in. Ooh, now I'll talk about this one too,
mhm.
right? Like this is the thing about a revolution is that it doesn't stop the day that you like win. It's just after like that reform, after that all the changes, people are still gonna be fighting against you to get back the stolen goods, right?
Mhm.
They want the stuff that they stole back, and uh, other nations around the world, other white nations are gonna like take part and like try to make it happen. And so you see how the oligarchy took its vengeance and like they they took it back. They tried taking back that land, right? Through
Mhm.
the law and stuff like that, which is happens when you're doing reform and not revolution, right?
Period.
And so, yeah, he said the poor people weren't left with anything anymore. Yeah, that happens all the time, right? Watakami?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we see that, right? Like, um, I, yeah, um, I just completely lost my train of thought. So critical. No, yeah, I had this part highlighted as well because, like you said, like reform does nothing at the end of the day, right? Like Mao talks about too. Like you have to wipe out the enemy thoroughly. Like
Hmm.
you have to wipe out every like all essence of the enemy. Because they will strike back, right? Like I think multiple revolutionaries also talk about like the hardest fight happens after victory, right? Um,
Yes.
of like not only rebuilding but maintaining control, right? Maintaining power. Um, which because I mean you fight so hard for revolution, right? I imagine you're just like, okay, we did it. But that's why we study revolutionaries and
Mhm.
revolutions, right? To know um what we need to do to maintain power within the poor working class colonized people. And yeah, like that, I I grew up learning a lot about Mexican Revolutionary history, right?
Hmm.
And it I used to always describe it like Mexico is a history of like failed revolutions, right? Because it wasn't just Zapata and Villa that like rose up, right? It was Hidalgo at one point. It was like all of these people, and it started from the beginning of colonialism, where indigenous tribes fought back, right?
Hmm.
But over and over, you see betrayal, and like
Yeah.
and that's eventually what took Zapata down too. It's just betrayal, and so many revolutionaries, almost all of them, right, have been betrayed and sold out by someone close to them. um and like that's why like maintaining revolution, it like comes through winning the masses, right,
Yeah.
and having power in the masses and not having it rely on like one single person, but winning the people to their own power and to the political line. And that's what political education does too, right? Political education and the work is what wins people, that no matter what happens to individuals, the revolution will keep going,
Yes.
until we are victorious, right? And even after that, to maintain that power. Um, so yeah, line back.
And back. Yes. Oh, full unity with that. And well said. Yeah. 'Cause yeah. Boriken has been a place like that too. History of failed revolutions that um, yeah, ended up with the United Snakes being the one with its hands around stuff, kind of like Mexico in the same way, right?
Yeah.
So all you people from all you Boricuas and Mexicanos who are always fighting each other sometimes in some places, you better stop because this is the same issues affecting all of us.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think something that I've learned being a revolutionary, right? Because that was my thought. That's how I learned it, right? Failed revolutions. But I think like it's more of an ongoing one.
Hmm.
Because like that's been my shift, like being in Black Hammer, is like it's not failed, it's just not over.
Exactly.
And like because our people are still here. There are still
Mm.
people of each nation fighting, right? And like that guarantees victory because it hasn't ended. Maybe the players change, at least the revolutionaries, right? But like that's why we represent our nations, right? We represent our nation and our people because like the same fight that I'm doing for Mexico is the same fight that Zapata had, is the same fight that like all of these revolutionaries have, and it's the same fight that I have for Borican, for Africa, for all nations, right? Like it is an ongoing global revolution, because we are all representing all of our revolutionary ancestors and fighting for each other's nations, and like that guarantees that unity guarantees our victory.
Yeah, and that unity guarantees the victory, especially because it weeds out any nations that can come and try to undo the revolutions that like we succeed at. That's why like you read that back, like the foreign the foreign outsiders. No, Virgil's read that back. The foreign outsiders coming in and undoing things. It's because all the enemy wasn't taken out, and but with that unity, we could take out the enemy because we colonized people make up 93% of the world. There's no way that they can win if we all unite. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, stand back. Totally with that.
I'm back, Chief Ide. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well.
Oh yeah, Leonard Chief Ide, shout out from Nigeria. Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
it's later there. You see our comrades work hard to get this political education, y'all. Staying up for this PE. Yeah, it's 2:31 a.m. there. Wow. So happy Valentine's Day, revolutionary love to you and to all of our Nigerian comrades, the Nigeria chapter. Um, yes, as Joe Biden said, none of us are free until all of us are free, but in a revolutionary way. I've heard that one so many times from liberals who don't understand the real meaning of that, but we mean that in the true revolutionary way, in that colonized unity way.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go to our next read that back, which mine is a two-parter, kind of within these same pages, so it kind of goes thematically. But yeah, it talks a little bit about those betrayals a little bit, right? So it says on page 116, economic, social, national frustration. A series of betrayals followed independence, and Latin America, split apart by its new frontiers, was doomed as before to monoculture and dependence. Agrarian reform was a demand from the beginning. In 1824, Simon Bolivar issued the Trujillo Decree, designed to protect the Indians and reorganize the land ownership system in Peru. Its legal provisions in no way limited the Peruvian oligarchy's privileges. which remained intact despite the liberators' good intentions, and the Indians were as exploited as they had been before. Earlier, Miguel Hidalgo and Jose Maria Morelos had been defeated in Mexico, and a century would pass before anything came of their demands for the emancipation of the dispossessed and the recovery of usurped lands. And then I jump to page 118. And it's the Agrarian Code of 1815, Free Land, Free Men, was the most advanced and glorious of the many constitutions that Uruguayans would have. Artigas' code was no doubt influenced by the ideas of Pedro Rodriguez de Campomanes and Gaspar Mercor de Jovellanos in the reformist era of Charles III. But beyond question, it was also a revolutionary response to the national need for economic recovery and social justice. It included expropriation and distribution of the lands of bad Europeans and worse Americans who emigrated because of the revolution and were never pardoned. Lands belonging to the revolution's enemies were expropriated without indemnity. And let it be recalled that these enemies owned the great majority of the latifundios. Children did not have to pay for the sins of their fathers. The code offered them the same as it offered poor patriots. Lands were distributed on the principle that the most unfortunate will be the most privileged. Indians and Artigas U had the chief right. Land back, right? So I like the most unfortunate will be the most privileged. That's kind of like Franz Fanon, talks about the last shall be first and the first shall be last.
Mhm.
The whole concept of completely overturning the contradiction, which is that poor working class colonist people do not have dictatorship over our lives, labor, land, and resources. And in order to do so, we have to become the poor have to become the most privileged. But rather than that, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just so yeah, it's you see a couple things here, right? Like one, you see how like we talked about how so many of these reforms can be undone if the enemies are completely taken out of the systems of governance that we're creating for ourselves,
Mhm.
right? We can't have in a BLM future, we would still be living in this country, right? But people will still be living at the expense of another, right? People
Mhm.
still would be, because they would still be including all the petty boos in charge. It'd just be Barack Obama's running the whole country in every single office, and Barack Obama, his only talent is bombing African children, and so everyone would still be dying, everyone would still be suffering. But I guess more petty boos would have more land to make wine and vineyards on. I don't know, something like that. Uh,
Mhm.
but in a true revolutionary world where no one lives at the expense of another, we're going to see the last be first, and for the last to be first, it means that our people are truly in control and have dictatorship over their land and over their lives.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's the big difference between those two things. And it just shows again the importance of land. The Black Hammer Party is always about freeing our land too, and making sure it's back in our hands. And so if it's not in our hands, to do with as we please, and what we please and what we wish to do with it is create food and sustenance and shelter for all of our people, then if we're not able to do that, then we're going to rise up until we do. And you can't stop it. And you because they haven't been able to stop it for centuries ever since this started. So yeah, no, land back. I like these two together, I think kind of lay out like what reform does and what revolution can do. Um and real quick too, like I think it's also good to compare it to like Cuba,
Mhm.
who when they did their agrarian reform, they uh they were actually really nice. They didn't take back the land from everybody, all the rich people. They actually let some of them keep the land. They just it was just under the state, right? It was
Mhm.
under the state, but they said they could still manage it. I don't know. I don't want to do that. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. And just like how Galeano says, a lot of these enemies are still running the latifundios. Nope, it's too risky. Too
Mhm.
risky. Get them out. Yeah.
completely. No, yeah, full unity. No such luck. Sorry, not sorry. Actually, not even a little bit sorry. Suck it up. It's like you can give it up peacefully, or yeah, and I think like just for clarity's sake, right? Like what you described were our principles number 1 and
Yes.
4, right? Um like if y'all are listening in and you don't know our principles yet, principle of unity number 1 states that we believe that the colonized proletariat deserves dictatorship over land, labor, um resources. I completely spaced. Land, labor,
Lives.
lives, and resources. Yes, thank you. Right? Because with that, like you said, we control our land, right? We tend to the land already, right? And to be able to control not only what grows on it in a way that's beneficial to the land itself, but also to sustain our people, right? And then number 4 is that only through the leadership of the poor and working class colonized people will we be free, right? And like that's why it has to be the poor and working class colonized people to have that dictatorship over the land, and over our lives. Um, and yeah, no, I think you laid it out beautifully. Like it we see it over and over again whenever there is pardon, whenever there is some sort of grace, right? Which we can't fully fault our revolutionary ancestors, right? Because we say it all the time. Our people are good people. Like our people did not want to make anyone suffer. Like um we're not trying to instill the same horrors that they did to us. That's not who we are. That's not who we are. That's who they are, right? Um, but don't get it twisted. We will do what needs to be done to gain that dictatorship, to gain that control,
Hmm.
out of love for our people, out of love for our land, and out of like knowing that only we can bring peace, right? And like an enemy of peace has to be dealt with, like an enemy,
Yes.
like someone who
Ooh,
wants, people like now like you
that's a
described.
quote. That's a T-shirt. I love it.
Now like like you described that BLM stuff, like they're not mad that, like they're not mad, like liberals are not mad about a small percent being in charge. They're mad that they're not the ones, right? They want a transfer of power. um and that's not what we're about. Like we want the power in the hands of the people, and we will do whatever it is to give it to the people.
Mhm.
um yeah.
Yeah. No. Whew, yeah. I like the. My agitprop mind wants to put that on something. That's a quote. Yeah. Enemy of peace has to be dealt with, right? Because it's just there's always been so much leeway. Like especially in a place like United Snakes, like the core of imperialism, where we put up with sellout mayors, sellout city council people, sellout school principals, sellout business owners, and all these people who we we pretend, because we deep down know they don't do nothing for us, but we continue to let ourselves pretend that they are going to lead us out of our poverty, lead us out of our hunger, lead us out of our suffering. And we do so because, again, like you said, we are good people. We believe our people are good people. Even when people are like, "Oh man, I hate this, Mo. I hate this, Mo." In the end, they still love our people. It's always love and peace. It's always love and peace.
Mhm.
People fight, and like, I love you, man. Like that's how it always is. And uh, like the Black Camera Party is done with those sellout, quote unquote, leaders, those sellouts who lead us into the fire, into the burning building. Even CIC talked about Martin Luther King, who uh, was self-critical about himself, asking himself, did I lead my people into a burning building of integration? Did he lead? He's like, did I lead my people into something wrong? And that's something that takes so much reflection and study to understand for oneself, and these are our leaders, and none of them like that's why Martin Luther King is so revered. He's once in a blue moon when it comes to people who have that petty boot background, right? And come to realize that like maybe they made mistakes. That don't happen often.
Yeah.
And we can't wait for all those people to do it. The poor and working class colonist people have to get it done.
I like
Um,
what F. Joe Biden said. That's nothing to do with us being good people, but with us being brainwashed to the point of practicing pacifism with the enemies of the
oh
people.
yeah.
No,
Hmm.
you're absolutely right, and I'm so critical. It does come off as like, oh, we don't know any better, and that's not
Oh
true.
yeah. Hmm.
That's not true, and so I don't want to be self-critical for that confusion there, because yeah, like they've practiced the last couple of centuries on how to keep us like quote unquote tamed, right? They want to keep us like docile and like because they that's how they treat us, right? As like literally animals.
Yeah.
And so no, yeah, I do want to be self-critical because that is a misrepresentation, right, of like the material reality of our people. Um, and yeah, like again, to make it clear, like it is being brainwashed, right? Through stuff like COINTELPRO, through the like the attacks that they have done on our people, like even if it's like something subtle, right? Like even through even through poverty is a way of brainwashing us, right? And
Mhm.
keeping us down, right? They push substance abuse into our people and like this endless propaganda on our people that makes us believe like all of these things, right? um and like that's not who we are. Because when you start to learn, when you like that's our goal, right? We say it all the time, is to wake our people up
Yeah.
out of this like I don't even know what to call it really, but out of this like reality, I guess, or like this like
Mhm.
hopeless future that they've like instilled in us, like that makes us believe sometimes that this is the only way. Um and yeah, like that's not it. We're here to show an alternative, um and that alternative being revolution for freedom.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, unite with that. Yeah, it's, no, it's true. Yeah, and that, yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, we don't want to misrepresent that. It's not that like, he's that the sellout leader comes and treats us like crap, and we're like, well, yes, yes, sir, because we're just so good. It's not that. It's not that. Yeah, exactly. We're brainwashed to to basically always say yes to our enemies, right?
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, and that's the source of it. In order for colonialism to maintain itself, it has to create a pacified people that never rise up against it, right, and never learn about it, right.
Hmm.
So our school system is used to brainwash us to not actually learn about the true history that our people around the world have gone through.
Hmm.
uh, and that's why we use political education to wake up our people, like Chief Watakame
Hmm.
was saying, so that they understand better where they come from and what's been done to them, and so that they see their enemies for who they truly are.
Hmm.
uh,
And
yes.
like Tiger said, and also wake them up to the reality that they are the leadership and that revolution is possible, right? Because
Yes.
like that's the turning point, because you can tell people, here's the enemy, here's everything that's been done to your people, but if you don't show them also that there is a way out,
Yeah.
right, like that's the turning point.
Oh, look at that collective overturning. That was amazing. I love the Black Hammer Party. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that collective overturning in political education. It's like, yeah, it don't happen nowhere else, y'all. Lay back. Oh, so let's get into our next read that back. Make sure you're dropping your read that back still in the comments. A quote that you is down with or you got a question about. But we're gonna go to our next one, which I believe is yours. What the
Hmm.
name?
Yeah, here's that point from the trivia. Yeah, so it's on page 122. Mexico's hour of revenge struck in 1910. The country rose in arms against Porfirio Diaz, an agricultural leader headed the insurrection in the south. He was Emiliano Zapata, purest of revolutionaries, most loyal to the cause of the poor, most determined to right the wrongs of society. From agricultural communities throughout Mexico, the last decades of the 19th century had been periods of ruthless pillage. In Morelos town and villages, uh, in Morelos, towns and villages were the victims of about of land, water, and labor grabbing, as sugarcane plantations expanded vicariously. Um, Sugar haciendas dominated the life of the state, and their prosperity had brought with it modern mills, big distilleries, and railroad spurs. In listen, that tripped me up. In Anengulico, where Zapata lived and to which he belonged, body and soul, the plundered peasants claimed the soil they had worked for 7 continuous centuries. They they were there before Cortes arrived, but those who spoke up were marched off to forced labor in Yucatan. Throughout their state, whose good land belonged to 17 families. They lived considerably worse than the Peloponnese and the latifundistas pampered in luxurious stables. A law in 1909 providing for the seizure of the land from its legitimate owners was the last straw. Zapata, taciturn but famous as the state's best horsebreaker and respected by all for his honesty and courage, turned guerrillero. The men of the South quickly formed a liberating army.
Hey.
Land back. That was like hard to read for some reason. My mouth is not doing.
Oh, there was a lot of there's a lot of words in there like that second to last word or taciturn. That's taciturn. It's an SAT word. It's actually I actually like it. It actually just means really really quiet, like quiet into yourself.
Yeah,
So yeah.
a lot of the words I learned reading and not hearing them, so I don't really know what they're like, what the pronunciation is. So I
Mhm.
only know the way that I would pronounce it, and most of the time it's wrong, but whatever. Um,
That's colonialism.
exactly, it is whatever you know what I meant. um, no, but Lambeck, yeah, like for me, it's this last part, right? Like, Zapata was known for being quiet. He was known for being peaceful, right? He was known for just keeping his head down and doing his work, right? Um, but the harsh reality woke him up to revolution,
Mhm.
and he answered the call, right? Like he said yes to fighting for his people, um, because it's the only thing that made sense, right? Um, and he did it viciously. He did it like unapologetically. He did what he needed to do to like start that liberating army, right? Um, like he Yeah, and I understand. I'm a little bit biased, right? Because this is my nation, and I know, um, and yeah, like planted the seed for a lot of people for generations, like right, like the Zapatistas are still alive today. Like it's a movement that has not stopped, because like those seeds have continued to blossom, right, and they continue to grow and they continue to spread, and yeah, like it's a really beautiful thing because it spread all around. It spread all throughout Mexico too, and I think like the biggest spread happened after he died, because
Mhm.
like when he was alive, it was pretty like concentrated, like you knew about it if you were in the area type of thing. um but yeah, no, I really like this because it also talks about kind of like something you brought up, right? Like people worked the same crop throughout
Mhm.
generations, right? No matter who was in power or under what conditions. um and this part just really struck home too, because my family was also sugarcane, like in Mexico. Like my dad worked, my dad worked harvesting sugarcane, right? And um, my dad talks about it a lot, like to this day. Like it's hard work. It's never not been hard work, right? It's harvest. It's real work. Um, but like it's our people. Like the part that stuck out to me here was like our people just don't give up, right?
Mhm.
Even through the pillages, even through um like the fight for water, for land, for labor, like um no matter what the circumstances have been, there's always people like Zapata, right, who will stand up, who
Yes.
will wake up. And this part was just really hopeful for me, because yeah, like it is doing that, and not in a liberal way of like organizing unions. you know
Mhm.
because like in this case, right, we're talking about sugar canes and stuff, or like work, right, labor. um Liberals response to that would be unions.
Yes, it would.
Like right, like what Zapata did was the alternative to those reforms, right? Because
Mhm.
they could have gone that way. They could have gone the fighting for like worker rights and stuff. It was like, no, this is ours actually, and we're gonna fight for it. Because like that's that's what makes sense. It's like, I don't want you to treat me better. I don't want you in charge. Like and
Mhm.
like it's that difference that it starts revolutionary movements. Like understanding that like this is why we're here, right? And like not even that we have ownership of land, right? Because like It was never like this land is mine and you have to buy it from me or whatever. But it
Mm-hmm.
was like you don't get to dictate what happens on this land. Like you know, and like and with indigenous people, it's that like ancestral belief that like we were placed here to take care of this land. And here
Mm-hmm.
comes like this enemy who tries to take that away and tries to like do that, right? And like we're just trying to get back the even just the ability to care for the land, right? It's not even like to have that land to take care of, so that the land takes care of us back. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, no, Limbeck, yeah, I know that, and that line, and it's really poetic. Where the plundered peasants claimed the soil they had worked for 7 continuous centuries. Is Yeah, it's saying what you're saying, right? That it's our land to claim to take back. It's our land to take back, and that's why we say land back all the time. There's no reason that we shouldn't bring to the forefront the our battle cry, right? Is because it's a worldwide one, right? It doesn't belong to any specific nation. It's because it represents a contradiction that is experienced by 93% of the world, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why we use that as our call to come together, to disband, to plan, to affirm, um, because it's the true crux of how we're going to get our power back, right? And with Zapata, that being that taciturn, land worker, it it shows that again, it could be any of our people that become these revolutionary leaders. It's any poor working class colonized person that is going to run run a whole army unit, run a whole system, run a whole office. It's us who's going to do it. And one day you're cutting sugarcane and the next day you are inspiring revolutionary movements across the world. And that's the reality of poor working class colonized people, and how brilliant we are and how powerful we are. And we don't and it takes a lot of hard work, but it doesn't take much to make that decision.
Mhm.
Right? The decision comes easy if you see what your material reality is and you see who your enemy is. And
That's right.
after that, then the hard work really truly comes. And it takes hard work to show people that, right? So it takes hard work to show people that. But once that person understands, then it's their decision to be like, okay, how do I move forward, with this? And like Zapata move forward by creating liberation army in the south of Mexico. And yeah, it's just yeah, no, it's inspiring to see how the Zapatistas today, you know, internalize that and show that, and that his revolutionary movement lives on in them, right?
Mhm.
Just as the revolutionary movements of like the Black Panther Party, or Marcus Garvey and the UNIA, live on the Black Panther Party, right? And so it's yeah, it's really inspiring to see just how yeah just how someone like Zapata, who you know was just like a person, just a regular, quiet to themselves person. And I love the thing you said about the unions, because that is also what a liberal would do, right? Like Zapata didn't say, "Oh, you know what? We have to, organize the workers and own the heart." He wasn't no Cesar Chavez, right?
Oh, please do not get me
I
started.
don't, I don't want to
Do
get you
not get
started
me
on
started. No, but like, ah, we'll be here for another 2 hours. Um,
it.
uh,
Yeah.
and since I Chavez, that's all I'm gonna say.
No,
So
yeah, no, like, and then we also see that unions aren't like a step to revolution. A lot of
mm-mm.
times people will be saying, "Oh, like do this, and this, and then it becomes revolution."
No, like
Well, no.
that's that part of that brainwashing, right? That Tiger
Mhm,
was talking about. Like the unions are part of that. Because like right, it says right here, like a law in 1909 providing further seizure of lands from its legitimate owners. Um, like a liberal would have taken that and like let's undo the law.
yeah,
Um,
find the ballot.
exactly, like go vote, y'all, go vote. Or like taking up, oh, I'm gonna be a representative because I'm against this law and I'm for you, right?
Mhm,
Zapata was like, you know what? Throw it all away.
mhm,
Like start over. And that's what is needed.
yeah.
Because then you do get fuckers like Cesar Chavez. Um, and Esmeralda Huerta, who is still out here. Don't worry, we have not forgotten about you. Um,
Hmm.
mm,
It's
mm,
like running for Hillary Clinton and stuff.
yeah, don't we have not forgotten. We have not. There are people here who know the real history, right? And like it, that's a lot of people see Cesar Chavez as a hero, um, but Mama was evil, and we're gonna let it be known. And rest in peace, because
Don't worry. Yeah, yeah, that's gonna come up in more political education. Trust that.
Mhm.
Trust. All right. Let's go to our next. Read that back. I believe. Oh, it might be. It's not yours again. It might be yours again. Oh, no, it's mine. It's on page 123.
Oh yeah.
All right. All right. So it says this last political decision had, as in the Artigas agrarian reform, a clear economic meaning. The latifundistas were the enemy. Technical schools, tool factories, and a rural credit bank were established. Sugar mills and distilleries were nationalized and became public services. A system of local democracy put the reins of political power and economic maintenance in the people's hands. Zapatista schools sprouted and spread. Popular juntas were organized for the defense and the promotion of revolutionary principles, and an authentic democracy took shape and gained in strength. The municipalities were nuclear units of government, and the people elected their leaders, courts, and police. Military leaders had to submit to the wishes of organized civilian communities. Bureaucrats and generals no longer imposed methods of production and of living. The revolution tied itself to tradition and functioned, quote, in conformity with the customs and usage of each pueblo. That is, if a certain pueblo wants the communal system, so it will be executed. And if another pueblo wants a division of land in order to admit small property, so it will be done. In the spring of 1915, all the fields of Morelos were under cultivation, mostly with corn and food crops. Meanwhile, food was short and hunger loomed in Mexico City. Carranza, who had won the presidency, also ordered a land reform, but his henchmen speedily cornered all its benefits. In 1916, Morelos' capital, Cuernavaca, and the Zapatista district were threatened by powerful forces. Crops now coming to fruition, minerals, hides, and machines were attractive booty for the advancing officers, who set fires as they came and proclaimed, quote, a work of reconstruction and progress. So it's a lot of what we talked about before. Um, it's just kind of related to that. Yeah, we don't have to go too deep in it because we kind of covered this, but yeah, again, you can create all this amazing revolutionary systems of schools and civil at the people electing and choosing who represents them, and and the army being submissive to the people's interest and all this. But if you don't squash your enemy, they're gonna come and set fires while when they're starving, and all your stuff is growing and like fruitful and bountiful and beautiful, as what happens after a revolution. And we see that with Cuba, we see that with China, big time. Yeah, it's just you have to squash your enemy. So we covered it, but yeah, that's what that read that back made me think of.
Yeah, no, Lambeck. I think you laid it out perfectly right, and like that's also, we're just gonna keep jabbing into the liberals today, because that's always a good time. Yeah, like that's why like they want like community gardens, right? And like
Yeah.
um like they all of these like individually controlled things, that are controlled actually by like nonprofits or whatever. And they think that that's a step towards liberation, is having a community garden, instead of seeing it as in like we're gonna have like for us it's like we want anti-colonial food growing,
Hmm.
as a step towards revolution, right? As a step towards weaning our people off of the colony. Um, but they ugh, most of the time everything grown in those like city gardens anyway like go towards farmers markets. Like they don't even get like directly to the people, which
Yeah.
is like so it's for you to still make more money off of people growing in your garden
Yes, exactly.
for free. Like you know what that's actually called though? Like
Slavery.
slavery in a city garden, because poor working class people come work and then you sell the crops. That's
That's
pretty.
actually what we have to go and call these community gardens, like growing home here in Chicago. All of them, they literally are plantations,
Like
literal
literally,
plantations.
like people go and work for free, and like that's the literal black and white definition, bro. Like people come work for you, and then they don't get any benefits, and you sell the crops.
For money.
I'm like, that's ugly.
And then yeah, and then they get paid with like job training programs that don't even get them making money to buy the produce that they just growing.
Exactly. Oh, that's ugly. Ugh.
Slavery and sharecropping. The
Oh, jeez.
nonprofit. Mm-hmm. Mm.
It's just it, and it's like there's no critical thinking
Nope.
being done, or actually, what I think is they know exactly what they're doing, um, because they're playing for the same team. They're
Yep.
playing for the same team.
Yes, exactly. And look at it. In fact, they make it this cute, eco-friendly thing, right? That like they're like saving the world or protecting the world by doing this thing that's supposed to be good for the environment. What's good for the environment is to return on the land so we can deconstruct all these pipes and oil, gas pipelines and electric work under this concrete sidewalk so that the water can't get through to get to the earth, so that we can heal the earth to grow on it instead of having to dig out certain concrete lots to grow in the middle of cities, right? It's just that's if they truly want to be eco-friendly, give the land back, and don't worry, the environment will change.
Mm, literally, that's literally it.
Yeah.
Again.
Mm.
Mm,
Ugh, let's go to your read that back, because I know this one was kind of what we were already talking about, but I know yours is a little bit later.
yes. Um, back that starts on page 127. I don't know how to say this last name, and I don't really
Me neither. I would say Byrock.
care. We're just gonna call him Paul. Um, Paul attributes the principal weakness of third world's economy to the fact that its median agricultural productivity is only half what today's developed countries achieved on the eve of industrial revolution. Um, in fact, for industry to expand harmoniously, a much greater increase in the production of food and agricultural raw materials is needed. Food because the cities keep growing and eating more, raw materials for the factories and for export, so that agriculture imports can be cut and foreign sales, which provide currency needed for development, increased. Furthermore, domestic consumption, which must expand if infant industries are to thrive, is enfeebled by the latifundio minifundio system, hunger wages in the countryside, and the ever growing reserve army of unemployed encourage this weakness. The immigrants from the rural areas who come to beat on city doors keep pushing down the overall level of workers' wages. Uh, Ever since the Alliance for Progress trumpeted the need for agrarian reform to the four winds, the oligarchy and technocracy have tirelessly elaborated projects. Dozens of projects, fat ones, thin ones, broad and narrow ones, gathered dust on the shelves of every Latin American. It's on the next page. Parliament. No curse is attached anymore to the theme of agrarian reform. Politicians have learned that the best way not to have it is to keep invoking it. The simultaneous process of concentration and automization of the land continue olympically in most countries. Nevertheless, exceptions are beginning to break through, for the countryside is not merely a seabed of poverty, it is also the seabed of rebellion, and acute social tensions often lie concealed behind the apparent resignation of the masses. Land back.
Land back.
Oof. Oof, oof. Um, I like to read that back because it not only lays out the contradiction pretty perfectly, right? Like it talks
Mhm.
about what is causing that, like hunger wages in the countryside. It talks about what is like increasing unemployment, what is even cutting down on productivity, right? It lays all of that out. But it also has the beginning part of the overturning, right? Which is like that last part, which says it's not only a seabed of of poverty, but
Mhm.
also a seabed of rebellion. Because we say it all the time, and I'll never get tired of it. But like they create us, right, through their contradictions and through what they put us, um, they create revolutionaries. um, and they do try to repress us, and they do try to, um, like, right, it says, like, the best way not to have it is to keep invoking it, because they think that by increasing poverty, they think that by decreasing how much food is available, by keeping us like weak and down or whatever and
Yeah.
hopeless, they think that that is going to subdue the fire. But those are all just that's just firewood, like, into
Mm,
into like what forges us, right? Which, like we said, the hammers are forged in fire, and they keep feeding it through colonialism. They keep feeding the fire, which is going to keep forging revolutionaries. um and they do it through ways that they think is actually keeping us down, which is really cute. um like, good try.
yeah.
um but also, like, homie Paul over here is like the principal weakness of the third world is like the fact that we don't have productivity, right? Um, they think, like, he attributes the fact that there's not enough pro- like being produced, which is like, please, Paul, like, let's have a conversation. It's like, and the thing with, like, all of these like intellectuals or academics or like philosophers or whatever they call themselves, who, like, the real problem in third world countries is whatever. um all it takes is, like, for us to ask, but why?
Exactly.
Like,
It,
like, the main principal weakness is its median agriculture productivity is only half of today, like what was today's, blah blah blah. But why? Like, you're so close. Just take it home, Paul. Take it home.
hashtag take it home, Paul, in the comments.
Like, like, it's like that all the time. Like, people are so good at calling out these, like, surface level contradictions, but
Hmm.
it's a question you learn when you're two. Why? That's it.
Hmm.
Why? Why is that a contradiction, right? And everything that we've learned, right, leads it back to colonialism. Like, that's the answer. That is the big, like, that's the, like, the umbrella, the underlying issue is colonialism. Any Take absolutely any contradiction about any facet of our life right now. You keep asking why, you get to the next level. Keep asking why, you get to the next level. Keep asking why, and the answer is the same. It is colonialism, right? And we know to overturn everything, we have to pull the rug from under the system, right? And that rug is colonialism, because it's at the base. It's at the base, and underneath that is liberation, is the world that our ancestors built, and is the world that, like, we want to rebuild, right? Is just take it all out, just take it all out. And, like, we'll take it from there. um like, funnily enough, we
Yes.
have we have all the skills to do it, because we're the ones actually doing the work in this
Mm-hmm.
world. Like, they call it unskilled labor, right? Like, that's what all of our people have. We're unskilled laborers, right?
Hmm.
Do without us. Like, that's why, like, during this, can I say the P word?
Yes.
Okay. During this pandemic, like, that's what they've been so scared of, is that all of us unskilled laborers are not gonna give our labor anymore, because they know that they can't survive without it.
Hmm.
But, like, when we pull that rug out, it's going to be our unskilled labor that it gives us the brilliance and the experience to rebuild for ourselves. um,
Yes.
and, like, that comes from growing up, um, on the seed bed of poverty, right? That comes from that, because we have to learn how to survive without. And like that, they could never. That's why they're so scared. That's why they push these jabs. That's why they push all of these rules. That's why they keep changing the rules about, like, how long you should stay home if you test positive, right? It was 14 days originally, was just still an average. Like,
Yeah.
that was still not even like a for sure thing. They
And now
changed it
it's
to 10, and then they changed it to 5.
Yeah.
That's not based on science. Like the particle hasn't changed. It doesn't change the way it works. They just want you to work faster, right? And like it that's why they're so scared. That's why they, like they are flailing. They are
Hmm.
flailing because our unskilled labor is becoming harder to find. Um and that should say something to our people, you know? That
Yeah.
should that's proof of our power and how much like we are what keeps it going. So if we just transfer all of that work into liberation, into revolution, and put all of that beautiful brilliance into liberation, there's absolutely nothing that like they could never stop us.
Yeah.
And you get to those conclusions by asking why. Like
Hmm.
it just yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. You get to those conclusions by asking why. I mean, you say it's colonialism, just like you talked about the principles earlier. That's our third principle of unity,
Mhm,
right? That all the problems the colonized face come from colonialism and the submissive neo-colonialists from within our colonized nations,
mhm,
right? And that is the reason, Paul, for this production, this lack of production, and for the hunger wages. That's a reason for it. It's because some people control the resources of the many, right? The many, the poor, middle class, colonized people don't have control over that land and that production, and so they don't get none. And it's the greedy colonizers and the submissive neocolonials, the submissive puppets that eat it all up, right? And
mhm,
keep that system going. And yeah, no, this is a good read that back, right? Because yeah, it shows how much they'll just change the rules and make up the rules as they go,
mhm,
uh, and that they'll keep pushing like these reforms and keep pushing these things in a place of no revolution, in a place of reform. They'll keep pushing these agrarian reforms, just like they might push the voting rights here in the snakes, and keep pushing and pushing it, and nothing's really changing. Nothing's really changing, and
mhm,
they're going to pretend it's changing, and again, brainwash us into believing it is. And the people don't rise up, and this is why we show our people. This is why we show our people that it's a lie, and that there's a reason why this is all happening, and it's colonialism, right? And the people who are born on, yeah, like you said, on the seabed of poverty are going to understand the quickest, right? And they're going to understand that they have the ability to rise up. Yes. Exactly, exactly. No, laying back. I unite with that. Here, Ben says that's why investigation and study is so important, to find the why and overturn it at the root. Right? See, and Mao talks about that investigation and study.
mhm,
No investigation, no right to speak. That's
mhm.
what Mao said.
So shut up, Paul.
Shut up, Paul. No investigation, no right to speak, Paul. And Mao said that a lot of people like that. He said that, but he stood by it because it's true.
Mhm,
Don't know the material conditions, then you can't say nothing. And intellectuals love that. As much as
mhm,
they have 10,000 footnotes at the back of a book, they don't do any true investigation, because investigation happens among the people.
mhm,
Books. Mm. Oof. All right. Let's go to our last read that back, our last one, and then we'll wrap it up, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us. We're gonna read this last one, and make sure you keep dropping them comments. But this one's about Argentina. We all know about Argentina, maybe.
mhm,
But this is Juan Domingo Perón had defied the interest of Argentina's land owning oligarchy by imposing the statute of the peon in compliance with the rural minimum wage. In 1944, the Sociedad Rural declared, in fixing wages, it is essential to determine the standard of living of the ordinary peon. His material needs are sometimes so limited that the use to which any surplus will be put is a little social interest. The Sociedad Rural continues to refer to peons as if they were animals, and its reflections on the workers' limited need to consume provide an unintentional key to the limitations of Argentine industrial development. The internal marker neither expands nor deepens sufficiently. Perón's economic development policy never broke the structure of agricultural underdevelopment. In a speech at the Teatro Colón in June 1952, Perón denied any intention of agrarian reform, and the Sociedad Rural commented officially it was a masterly dissertation. In Bolivia, thanks to the agrarian reform of 1952, Nutrition visibly improved over large areas of the Altiplano, so much that increases in height were noted among the peasants. Look at the difference. It's such a material difference of when you truly, truly work for the people and not lie and steal from them, and when the people get what they need, they literally grow. It's not the metaphorical growth. They literally got taller. Like, what if, what if truly, a lot of times people say indigenous people are short. Like, we're short because of colonialism. Guess what?
Mhm.
I'm 7'2". Colonialism stole that from me. Colonialism stole that from me. Oh, and no, but on a serious note, it's interesting reading about Argentina, because for being such a richer place, quote unquote, the production there was it was lazy. It was lazy. They didn't do any technological innovation because they didn't want to take away from any money they were making. So they used
Mhm.
like horses instead of tractors, like into the 50s and 60s. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, we're gonna use horses. Like the landowners are like, no, you don't have to do all that. And of course, that's harder work for the peasants, right? You're
Mhm.
making nice hard tractors and all that stuff makes work easier. But no, like let's make them do the hard work because it makes us more money and costs less. And Argentina was producing less than most other places that had the same like life expectancy and economic GDP, all that kind of stuff. But they
Mhm.
weren't producing much, and it's because there were some lazy mofos. Then, and know why? It makes sense because Argentina is the most European of
Mhm.
all the colonies up on these continents. They have the most white people, so of course it's the most like that. Of course, it's the most like that because it's the most like Europe that they've created, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so you see Peron, who is pretending to do this agrarian reform because there's still colonized indigenous people and Africans and other colonized people in Argentina. And so he has to pretend to do these reforms because they're the ones who are doing the work.
Mhm.
And and then look, in the end, the rural society who was supposed to come and like monitor this whole process of agrarian reform, after Peron spoke, said that was a masterly dissertation. Like, what a great speech! And speeches don't do for the people, for anybody. Those
Mhm.
speeches are just words. They're just words.
Smells like campaign promises.
Smells like campaign promises, smells like tweets, smells like debates of nobodies. That's what it smells like.
Smells
Exactly.
like fake crying at the border.
Yeah, it sounds like AOC crying at the border. It's all just symbols and words, and doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Mao even said it, like you have to be revolutionary in word and in action,
Mhm.
right? And when you are revolutionary in word and action, your people will literally grow in height. And I think that's just like an inspiring, like side by side of that, like to see what doing nothing does and what doing something does. And if you want your nation to grow metaphorically, culturally, and literally in height, you have to win them to revolution and to dictatorship over their land so they can get that growth. So yeah.
No, yeah, like them back for unity and like that growing thing, right? Like it alludes to so many other issues, because like, can you imagine like the genetic damage done like from this malnutrition, right? And like it's really similar to like nowadays, like all our people, the health contradictions are off the charts,
Hmm.
right? And like that comes from generations of hard work, because like trauma will, like physical, emotional, mental trauma, which our people suffer all every single day in the colony, right, will literally alter your DNA. It physically changes your DNA. um and so can you imagine that over centuries, right? And like no
Hmm.
wonder our people have so many contradictions. No wonder like our, we see, we're worked past the point of necessity, right? Like we're like no one should have to work as hard as our people work, just to survive, and like yeah, Argentina's like the biggest like sellout place in like Abya Yala. Like everyone knows it's like, oh, Argentina, okay. um and it's again not at the fault of the colonized people, of course. Like it just was
No.
so colonized. It was
Hmm.
so colonized to the point where there's like it's one of the countries like the biggest like cultural discrepancies between like the rest of like Abya Yala. Like you can find similarities through like every country, right? Whether that's music or food or like whatever. And Argentina is kind of just like in its own
Yeah,
um
the language, like it's so colonized. Even the Spanish is colonized. Like it has Italian in it because there's so
yeah,
many
which is
Italian.
so crazy, And like yeah, the horses thing, like right, it said in the book that like the justification was like it's cheaper to feed a horse than to oil a tractor. And like that's why they chose horses. And and like they talk about it too, where it's like workers can be like workers are reproduced, right? Like because colonized people keep having kids and like those kids are born into colonialism and like we are seen as more loot
Mhm.
for them, right? To work for them. Um yeah, like it just it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and in the end, we see that it's revolution that is going to, really win our people away from from being caught up in that system, being like we wouldn't have to choose between the horse and the tractor, because in a world where no one lives at the expense of another, the horse and the tractor are tools that we take care of and that we maintain, to better the lives of the people. They're not a means of deciding better profit or deciding what's easier for one, right? It's about
Mhm.
what's best for everyone.
Mhm.
uh, and so that choice will never look the same again. You won't have to choose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. You won't have
Mhm.
to make the decision between staying with your abusive partner or living in a communal home. You won't have to make any more of these decisions, because in a world where no one lives at the expense of another, we take care of each other to the point where people live with minimal contradictions because we have control over our lives. And
That's right.
that's a world that we deserve to live in.
Mhm.
We deserve it, not because of just what we went through, but because we are we are living beings. We deserve it.
Exactly. We deserve
Okay,
it
I'm
and we
back.
will get it. I'm back.
Yes, and we will get it. All right, we're gonna go into our yes, Virgil, true abundance. We're gonna go to our announcements. Thanks for watching with us, y'all. So make sure you watch the Revolutionary Church every Sunday live on Facebook and the Black Hammer Facebook page. And then you can catch the recording at YouTube on Black Hammer TV, where you're watching this right now, possibly. All right. And so make sure you tune in. We are telling the people the importance of discipline, confidence, action plans, and comrades. And the people are winning and are getting won to this. All right. And so check it out and see how Atlanta is breaking it down for the people.
Yes.
And then, of course, keep calling the Atlanta City Solicitor's Office if you drop the charges on the hammers who were doing the Revolutionary Church, 404-658-6618, extension 5. All right. Keep on putting that pressure on. And then what pages are we reading next week? What the coming?
We are reading beginning of chapter 3, pages 134 to 170. This is flying by.
Yeah.
Yes, pages 134 to 170.
Yeah, no, we had a little bit shorter amount of pages last time, so this time around, so we get a little bit more. And this was actually all of chapter 3, so it works
Oh,
out.
okay.
So
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, chapter 3, everybody, 134 to 170. Break it up, 36 pages, over the next 7 days. Is that 9 pages a day? 9 pages before you go to sleep, or 4 pages in the morning, 4 pages at night. You got it, everybody. All
Easy.
right. So you can get the book at blackhimber.org/library. Okay, well, land back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Keep on sharing it. It's never too late to share this. And we will see you next week for more of Open Veins Latin America. All
That's
right.
right.